Hey guys, it's Chris Berry here. In this video, I'm going to teach you how you charge as a new coach or a beginner coach to make sure that you are charging the right amount of money that you should be. So to get things started off, I'm going to go ahead and share my iPad screen and we're going to break a couple of things down. So coming over here, you guys should see my iPad screen now. Charging as a new coach. What are the best practices? What do you need to do? So one of the first things that we're going to dive into on it is one of the biggest mistakes that I see so many coaches making is what they do typically when they start off is they're just going to check the price of their competitors, decrease it slightly because they want to stay competitive. They want to make sure that people come to them. Guys, you have to remember this very important thing, okay? And this is this part right down here, okay? Price and how price and value is determined, okay? Guys, value is determined by the buyer. Okay, there are people that in the United States barely make it by, only make a couple $1,000s a month. Then there are other people that will spend thousands of dollars on a Gucci bag, a Prada, Birkin, whatever it may be. With that said, you have to realize that value is determined by the other person, not necessarily some universally set standard. So coming further down, right, as we look at this, okay, people buy things to solve a problem. So the bigger the problem that the person has, and I'm going to make this thing a little bit small. Actually, I'm going to move it up to the top so you can see a little bit better, right? The bigger the problem, the bigger the solution, the more money that you're going to go ahead and get for this. So as you're considering, how am I going to price my services? How am I going to price my product? You need to understand what is their problem, okay? If you don't understand what their problem is, how in the world can you go ahead and charge for it? And yes, you could haphazardly go around, I'm going to help you get in this direction, that direction, whatever it is. If you as a coach, when it comes to crafting your product or service, and especially when you are selling this, you need to understand the person's problem. If you don't understand their problem, what are you going to sell them? People buy things to solve a problem. Once again, right here. So if that's the case, you need to go ahead and make sure that you make their problem. And yes, of course, we want to make sure we use this correctly. But the more that the person, the individual, the prospect that is considering buying from you, the more that they see their problem as a genuine and true problem, the more that they are willing to pay to solve said problem. So as we continue along here, I'm gonna give you guys a couple of examples, okay? So we're gonna first just look at business coaching. That's where we see a lot of, okay? If you help a business make $500 additional $1,000 this year, it would make sense for you to go ahead and charge $100,000 for said service. Right? Or even something smaller. If you help someone learn a new skill and they're able to make $30,000 in the first 12 months, you charging $5,000 is very real and doable. Okay. So understand what is the problem that you're helping them solve and what is the solution that you're ultimately bringing. And ultimately, it's going to come something down here. If you'll notice, if you solve bigger problems, you get bigger solutions and more money to you. Okay. Looking over to non-business. Let's say you're just helping somebody improve their relationship with their significant other. Now, this is where it can get very different because I work with a lot of coaches. They're like, oh, well, it's not as easy. I'm not monetary. I'm not in this space or that space. Guys, if you work in, right, there's three main buckets: health, wealth, and relationships. So you're going to fall into one of these three buckets when it comes into coaching. If you look, right, wealth, we get it. You make 500, you help the other person make 500, you get paid 100K. Cool. Understood. Now, if you're coming on the other two sides, right? Health or relationships, it's sometimes harder to quantify the amount of money that you make. But the thing is, there's a really, really great quote that goes out there. And there's just these people that walk around, they talk to someone, random people on the street, and they say, hey, I have a question for you. If I gave you $10 million, would you go ahead and take it? Like, is this again? No, of course. I'm just saying, this is theoretical. Would you take it? Of course, absolutely. The following up question that they ask is that if me giving you this $10 million means that you would not wake up tomorrow, would you still take the $10 million? And every single time the person says, no, nearly every time. The person says, no, absolutely not. And then the person who's interviewing flips around and says, okay, so what you're telling me then is that you waking up tomorrow, your life is more valuable than $10 million. Is that correct? So I want you to ponder upon that. So if you are not in the business niche, if you are in health, relationships, whatever it is, you need to understand that there is value behind this. If you go ahead and give people their health back, right? You allow them to live an extra 5 years and to spend more time with their family, to see their kids grow up, to walk their daughter down the aisle. How much is that worth to the person? And oftentimes the coaches that I'm working with, they understand that. The hard part is they're not able to effectively communicate that to the other side. And why am I sharing this with you in a video as we talk about what to price your products or what to charge as a new coach? The thing is, if you're not able to effectively communicate the problem that this person you're helping them overcome and the solution, how can you go ahead and express to them the value that is there, right? Because once again, guys, value is determined by the buyer. So if you're not able to go ahead and help the person understand the value, why in the world would they ever pay you higher amounts of money? And the thing is, guys, oftentimes a lot of coaches I work with, they're charging way too little. I'm going to touch upon kind of the process and the progression because there's nothing necessarily wrong with starting off smaller. Oftentimes coaches I see, they can charge much more than they are on that. They just need to understand how to frame it and how to actually deliver a valuable thing on that. Okay. So coming along, I've given you a couple of examples as we continue down. One little note I wanted to share with you is do not trade time for money. Do not price per hour, charge for a specific outcome. This is generally speaking. Yes, there are some times where maybe this makes sense. Overall, it is much easier to go ahead and charge for an outcome rather than, oh, it's gonna take me 50 hours to do this. Now, why is that the case? Because my belief is that incentivizations are massive in accomplishing anything. So if you are incentivized to go ahead and take more time with a person, is that going to help the person get there faster or slower? Of course, it's going to be slower because you are financially incentivized to do as many hours, rack up as many hours as you can, versus you go ahead and say, hey, in order to achieve set outcome, it's going to be $10,000, $5,000, $25,000, whatever it is. You go ahead and you do that. Now, what you're able to do, you're not worried about having to space things out and everything. The person, you are incentivized to get the person there faster with less effort, less everything. And we're going to talk about value and kind of breaking down the bits and pieces of it. So stay tuned because I'm going to literally share step by step how to quantify how people deem things to be valuable or not. Before we get into that, you want to set up your packages, your pricing, your services, so that it is financially incentivized for you to get the client more success and for you to go ahead and be able to do more and scale. Why should you be penalized because you're so damn good at it and it takes you this much time, therefore you're going to charge less hours or whatever it may be? Now, there's different ways of looking at it, but what I always recommend is charge based on the outcome, not just on an hourly rate, generally speaking. Okay. As we continue along, this is something I want you to consider. What is your ideal client willing to pay in order to solve their problem? Exactly what we were talking about before. If the person is paycheck to paycheck, they're probably going to be less willing to pay large amounts of money unless it gets them out of some sort of massive pain, which is possible. On the flip side, though, if you are able to help people that have a lot of money solve their problems, they're willing, most likely, to pay a lot more. So something to keep in mind as you're determining what direction do I want to go? How do I package this? Which audience should I be going after? On top of that, too, people do two things, okay? Keep this in mind. Number one, they'll either run away from pain, something that they don't want, or they're going to run to something that they do want. So as you're packaging, putting these different things together, understanding your product, your service, and how you're going to charge it, you need to understand how can you leverage both the pain that they want to run away from and that thing that they're striving for, because it allows you to go ahead and have a push and pull at the same time, moving in the same direction. So coming down, we've talked about a couple of different examples. This right here is the value equation. Now, ultimately what this does, it breaks down how people deem things to be valuable or not valuable, and it quantifies it. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Chris. A lot of you leave comments and send DMs to me telling me that you need help. Do me a favor. I'm going to tell you the best way to get a hold of me. Shoot me a text message right now at 949-990-5808. Once again, that's 949-990-5808. I'll help you with whatever you guys need. I got your back. Let's get back to the video. So first things first, it's an equation. You notice there's some stuff on the top and stuff on the bottom. First, looking at the top, the numerator, it is going to be the outcome. If I'm talking to you and I tell you, hey, I can help you make $100 in the next year, you probably won't be too excited about it. Now, if I told you, hey, I have a step-by-step process that can help you make $1 million in the next year, Some people might be okay, but other people, they'd be, oh yeah, that ears perk up. They're a lot more excited. So the outcome is important because that is going to be one of the parts of how people deem things to be valuable or not. So that's part one. Part two is the perceived likelihood of achievement. How likely are you able, or is the person seeing in their eyes, not your eyes, in their eyes? How likely do they believe that they can actually achieve this outcome? Got it. Now, we're going to dive deeper into this, but this includes your testimonials, your case studies, all these different things. They continue to add proof as the likelihood increases that you can actually help them achieve said goal, and you will ultimately follow through on the things that you're telling them. Now, as we look at the bottom, right, we have effort and we have time. And once again, guys, I want to point this part out right here. They are multiplied by each other, right? Because if you have, for example, over here on the right-hand side, we're going to take just different numbers, right? If the outcome is a 10 out of 10, and they really like it, and the perceived likelihood of achievement, it's not just 10 plus 7, it's 10 multiplied by 7, right? So that becomes 70. So the power behind that is that this is multiplying, not just simply adding. So the more that you add to it, the better. Now, coming down on these two, this is a lot of people, a lot of coaches, they really focus on this part up here on the top, which is great, don't get me wrong. But what you don't realize is that there's actually a greater value to decreasing these because it has a much larger impact on the overarching thing. I'll explain to you how in a minute. The bottom half of the value equation is effort. So how easy or hard is it for this person to achieve said thing, right? And that's the reason why, if you look at health, for example, so many people are much more willing to pay for money because they deem it more valuable, right? Because when people value things, they're willing to pay more for it. They're more willing because they see more value in taking a pill to try to lose weight rather than going to the gym, working out, all these different things, right? It is less effort and less time. Okay. Part two is time. Is it going to take me a year to make $1 million, a month to make $1 million, 25 years to make $1 million? How long is that going to take? And the shorter the time duration, the better it is. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here and give you an example. Okay. Let's say the effort is 7 over here, and then the time is also 7. Okay. So that would now be 49. So as we look at that, 70 divided by 49, that is 1.42, just as we can go ahead and have it here. Okay. 1.42. Now I want to give another example here. So let's say we did the same exact thing, 10 over 7, which gives us 70, as we go ahead and do the same exact thing. But let's say the effort, you make it easier for the person. Now it's only 5 and 7, right? Now you're looking at 35. Guys, just like that, you went from 1.42. Guys, just remember, you brought the effort from a 7 to a 5. Now, instead of a 1.42, which is this equation that we did right here, right? 35 divided by 70, that's 2. We literally grew by 0.6. And obviously, we're using this as an example, but look at the power of it. And I'll do the same exact thing on the flip side, right? So 7 by 7 is equal to 49. So we look at the top. Okay, let's say you made this, instead of a 7 up here, it's a 9 now. Okay, by 9. So you have 90 over 49. 90 divided by 49, you have 1.83. So you can see you did the same exact 2 on the top, and it only gave you a 0.4% increase from there to there. Or you did it on the bottom, and now you have a 0.6% increase. So something to keep in mind as you're crafting these different things and understanding how people deem things to be valuable or not valuable. Continuing along, part 2, now that we understand this entire framework, right, we understand that value is determined by the buyer. People buy things to solve a problem, and therefore we have to make sure the problem is the prospect is very problem aware, and we do that through sales presentation. If you guys want an understanding of how to make people more problem aware of that, drop it down in the comments, and I'm more than happy to make a video on this. Ultimately, as we come down, right, part 1 is we have to understand that how price and value is determined. Now that we understand these things, we understand value is determined by the buyer. We understand that people buy things to solve a problem. And then we also understand what people deem to be valuable and not. Now let's actually get, okay, how do we actually charge as a coach? So you have to remember this, guys. You are a new coach. Do you have previous experience? Yes. And another thing too is that, do you have experience helping other people achieve the outcome that you will help your future client with? Okay, because this comes down to the perceived likelihood of achievement, whether people deem things to be valuable or not, and more that you can charge, right? Because we use these 1.42 and this 1.83 and this 2.0 just as arbitrary numbers, so I can give you an example right now. You have to understand, the higher this number is, the more valuable it is, the more that the person is willing to pay you. right? And that's why you're doing this. Of course, you want to help people, but in the same sense, you're just only helping, and the goodness of your heart isn't going to put money on the table, isn't going to feed your family, isn't going to help you achieve the financial goals that you're looking for. So the thing is, how can we merge the two? Because the more that you're truly able to help people and provide value, the more that you will make money. So the thing is, we have to make sure that your value is seen more and more. So coming down here, you are a new coach. You do not have as much experience. Therefore, the perceived likelihood of achievement is decreased because you don't have as much case studies, testimonials, people to back up what you're saying you're actually going to do. So now the thing is that how do you take the risk off of the other person, and then you go ahead and you take that on yourself if you're confident truly in your product and service, right? And this is what I just said. The more value you provide, the more people are willing to pay. So getting into the meat and potatoes of it, what do you actually charge? Chris, you talked about a lot of great things. How do I actually do it? A couple of ways. You can't just go straight up and just go for it, right? You can make sure, and this is where it comes in, because the better you are at sales, you can really kind of sell anything. Let's say you're not that great at sales and you just want to understand, how do I actually frame this so that I can just get clients in? I want to start doing all these things. Like I said, if you're great at sales, or even if you want to go for it, absolutely, you can charge what your value, make sure that the person is problem aware. If that's not the case, one option that you can do is you can start free, get testimonials, and then as you go ahead and you get these, you start getting heavy discounts. Okay. And then you slowly lower the discount until you eventually charge full price. Now, you're probably wondering, Chris, why in the world would you recommend me to charge for free? Because the thing is, for you as a coach, if you're just looking to get experience and get testimonials, what does this do? It's not only free, because what can happen from a free person, number one, they can upsell and you could ascend them and you can actually get money from them on the back end, number one. Number two, they could also lead to referrals. And number three, you're also increasing your perceived likelihood of achievement, because now you're having case studies and testimonials, which increases your value, which means that you're able to charge more. So you're planting seeds today that you'll be able to reap tomorrow. So on that, starting free, getting testimonials, heavy discount, and then slowly lowering the discount is a great strategy if you're not as confident, you're maybe not as good at sales, or you just even want to start off and really prove even to yourself possibly that you can help do this with other people. So as you're coming here, what's great about this approach is that there's no barrier of it in a sense. You can just get started and start client, because that's one of the biggest things I see so many coaches make, is they're too worried about getting started, too worried about the details, and they have analysis paralysis rather than just getting started. Guys, you can literally help people for free. Just go do it, get testimonials. And then from then, let's say that normally you would charge $10,000 for the service. Now, after you've done your free one, then you go ahead and say, hey, we're doing it at 80% off. It's going to be $2,000. Okay, cool. There you go. Now the next cohort that you do, the next people that you enroll, you do for $4,000. Okay, cool. And then you do $8,000, so on and so forth, until you're actually at your full price of $10,000, right? So that's his first option here that we have. Another one, as I said before, is you also just can go directly for it. If you're phenomenal at sales, you can sell a person without needing this. It makes your life a lot easier if you have the offer and everything set up like this, though. And option two down here is charge with a heavy guarantee to reverse the risk. You have to remember, you're just starting. Your perceived likelihood of achievement is just your word. So if you have a strong brand, it could hold some weight, but ultimately there's a lot more risk that the new prospect is going to be incurring on their end. So how can you reverse that risk? You charge, but you have a heavy guarantee in order to reverse risk. Something like this that a lot of people are using in the space right now, at least I'll say top successful people that can deliver upon their services, they say, hey, I'm going to charge you $15,000, but if you don't make $15,000 in the next 90 days, in the next 12 months, then I will go ahead and refund you your money and give you $5,000 for wasting your time. You think about it, that's kind of a no-brainer from the other person. Now, yes, of course, you as a coach are incurring a lot more risk. You can have conditional guarantees to where they actually need to follow through the steps, because obviously if they're not going to follow the steps and they don't achieve the success, that can't be on you. There's ways that you can frame it, but ultimately that's another option that you can go about in order to make it charging. So you can actually charge the price that you want. Let's say you go off charging the $10,000. Now the thing is, though, is that you know that you can help people get there. Therefore, you go ahead and you put a heavy guarantee to reverse the risk. You don't need to give the $5,000 additional $5,000. I want you to understand the concept here of reversing and taking the risk away from the client and putting it on your end so that you can just continue to build up this perceived likelihood of achievement in that. And obviously there's other ways that you can increase these things too, which people deem things to be more valuable, and then you can add more. I got a lot of arrows around here, but I think you get the point. Okay. Coming down here, one last thing as we start to recap and wrap up here, guys. I want you to remember this. a lot of things we talked about in this video. This is probably one of the most important things. So make sure you take a note of this. When you're doing this and when you're offering people and deciding what to charge, you need to make an offer so good that people feel stupid for saying no. I'm going to say that one more time because it's important. When you are deciding what to charge as a coach, creating your product or service, you need to make an offer so good that people feel stupid for saying no. Okay, because when you do that, it allows you to have a lot less friction through the process. Can you not have an offer that's so good? Yes, you could be good at sales and just be able to close people that way. But the thing is, if everything's in alignment and you can really do what you are telling people you claim you can do, then go ahead and do it. Make an offer so good that people feel stupid for saying no. Okay. And as you get more case studies, we talked about this. Okay. As you get more case studies, successful clients, the perceived likelihood of achievement increases. Therefore, your value increases and you continue to charge more money. So with that said, everyone, recapping, because we talked about a lot of different things. Number one, value is determined by the buyer, not by you. So you need to make sure the person fully understands the value that you can provide to them. And it's really a big enough of a problem for them to want to pay you. Remember this also, the bigger the problem, the bigger solution, bigger the money, right? You helping solve a $500,000 problem is going to pay you more handsomely than a $5,000 problem or something that isn't then a stub toe, right? Coming back here as well, value equation. This is how you can literally quantify how people deem things to be valuable. On the top, you have outcome multiplied by the perceived likelihood of achievement. On the bottom, you have effort and time. Once again, remember, increasing both, any of these is good, right? Or technically down here, you actually want to decrease these things, less effort, less time. You want to either increase on the top or decrease on the bottom, yes. But remember on the bottom, it has a larger effect as we went ahead and came up here. You went from 1.42 to 1.8 by the top, but you went all the way down to 2 when you went ahead and decreased the bottom. Okay, so that's the value equation. And very last, but definitely not least, make an offer so good that people feel stupid for saying no. So everyone, that is what I have for you for today. If you have found this video to be valuable, please make sure to drop a like, drop a comment of the top thing that you were able to take away from this video. On top of that, if there's any sort of additional videos that you guys would like me to do when it comes to crafting sales presentations, when it comes to marketing, any aspect of a coaching business, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below, and I'm more than happy to make that content for you. And we will see you guys very soon on the next video. Hey guys, I wanted to tell you that you are the true coaches and the real students. You made it till the end of the video. Do me a favor, share this with a friend who wants to go to another level. Also, make sure you like the video, comment below so I know who you are, subscribe, and turn on your notifications for the channel as we will be dropping more valuable content every single day. See you soon.